The evening of April 17, 2023, would forever mark the catastrophic downfall of Officer Derek Hutchins's 15-year law enforcement career. What started in the Nordstrom parking lot at Westfield Montgomery Mall in Bethesda, Maryland, as blatant racial profiling of a black father shopping for his daughter's prom dress would ultimately result in a $5,700,000 settlement, a criminal conviction, multiple officer terminations, and sweeping reforms throughout the entire Montgomery County Police Department. The father Hutchins chose to harass that night wasn't just any dad trying to create a special moment for his grieving daughter. He was a man with authority, a public platform, and an unwavering resolve to ensure this injustice would never happen to anyone else. This is how one officer's racism crashed headfirst into accountability and lost spectacularly. Before we dive deeper, quick question for you. What city and state are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments because I absolutely love seeing where our community members are tuning in from all across the nation. Marcus Wellington shouldn't have been shopping that particular Tuesday evening. At 42 years old, this special agent with the United States Secret Service, assigned to the Presidential Protection Division, operated on a schedule planned months ahead with military precision. But life had dealt him an unexpected blow that demanded flexibility. Marcus had dedicated 14 years to the Secret Service. Prior to that, he'd spent 8 years serving in the United States Marine Corps, completing 2 combat tours in Afghanistan where he earned a Bronze Star for valor. He'd graduated with honors from Howard University with his criminal justice degree, completed training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, and received commendations from 3 separate presidential administrations. His personnel file was immaculate. His service record was exemplary, and he'd safeguarded presidents, vice presidents, foreign dignitaries, and their families. He'd orchestrated security operations for events drawing hundreds of thousands of attendees and held the highest security clearance the United States government grants. But on April 17, 2023, none of that mattered to him. His thoughts centered entirely on his daughter, Jasmine. Jasmine was 17, and approaching her senior prom on April 22nd, just 5 days away. This should have been among the most thrilling moments of her young life. But tragedy had struck 8 months earlier when Jasmine's mother Marcus's wife, Simone, died from breast cancer on August 3, 2022. Simone had always orchestrated the milestone moments, birthdays, school dances, college visits. She'd spent over a year planning Jasmine's prom with her before receiving her diagnosis. Together they'd browsed dresses online, bookmarked their favorites, and discussed hair, makeup, and photo arrangements. After losing her mother, Jasmine told Marcus she couldn't bear attending prom without her mom there. But Marcus discovered Simone's notes, printouts of dresses, a list of stores to visit, and colors she thought would look stunning on Jasmine. Marcus made his decision then. He requested a rare evening off, something Secret Service agents rarely do. He drove to Nordstrom in Bethesda, one of the stores on Simone's list, intending to surprise Jasmine with the perfect prom dress. The plan was straightforward. Arrive at the store by 6 o'clock, work with a personal shopper who'd been assisting him through phone calls. Select the emerald green dress Simone had circled on her printout in size 4 for $485, along with matching shoes. Be home by 8 p.m. to surprise Jasmine. Marcus pulled in at 5:47 p.m. wearing jeans, a gray Howard University hoodie, and Nike sneakers. He was driving his personal car, a 2021 black Honda Accord. He looked, in other words, exactly like any other father out shopping for his daughter, which is precisely what made him a target. Marcus spent 43 minutes inside Nordstrom. The personal shopper, Alicia, had been wonderful. She'd already pulled the dress in 3 sizes plus 2 backup options in case Jasmine's preferences had changed. They settled on the emerald dress in size 4, plus silver heels, a matching clutch, and a delicate bracelet Alicia promised would be perfect. The total came to $847.32. Marcus paid with his personal credit card, declined gift wrapping to save time, and exited the store at 6:30 p.m. Carrying 3 Nordstrom bags, 1 large dress bag, and 2 smaller bags containing the shoes and accessories. The parking lot was moderately busy for a Tuesday evening. Marcus had parked in Section D, Row 7, Spot 42. He remembered such details automatically after years of training. His car sat approximately 120 feet from the store entrance, He was halfway to his vehicle when he noticed a Montgomery County police cruiser, number 3847, moving slowly through the parking lot. Marcus thought nothing of it. Police regularly patrol shopping areas, and it seemed routine. He reached his car, clicked the key fob to unlock it, and started placing the bags in the back seat. That's when he heard the voice. "Sir, I need you to step away from that vehicle right now." Marcus turned to find Officer Derek Hutchkins, 38 years old, had pulled his cruiser directly behind Marcus's Honda, blocking it in. Hutchkins stood beside his patrol car, one hand resting on his service weapon, the other pointing directly at Marcus. "Officer, I'm just loading shopping bags into my car," Marcus said calmly. "Is there a problem?" Hutchkins responded, "Don't play games with me. What are you really doing in this parking lot?" Marcus felt that all too familiar tightness in his chest, the sensation he'd experienced before as a teenager in Baltimore, as a college student in D.C., as a Marine in uniform at an airport, and even once in his Secret Service suit when he'd been off duty without visible credentials. He was a black man in America. No amount of service, no level of achievement, granted immunity from this moment. "I just purchased items from the store," Marcus said, maintaining an even tone. "And I'm putting them in my vehicle. You can see the Nordstrom bags." "Show me your ID now," Hutchkins demanded. "Officer, what is the reason for this stop?" Marcus asked. "I haven't committed any crime. I haven't violated any law. Why are you questioning me?" Hutchkins's face hardened. "You match the description of someone we're looking for. I need to see your identification and proof that this vehicle belongs to you." Marcus knew this playbook intimately. He'd witnessed it countless times. There was no description. There was no call. There was simply a black man in a parking lot and an officer who decided that constituted suspicion. "What description would that be?" Marcus asked. "What crime am I suspected of?" "Are you refusing to comply with a lawful order?" Hutchkins said, his voice rising. "I can make this a lot harder for you." By now, other shoppers were taking notice of the confrontation. A woman approximately 25 feet away had her phone out recording. A couple walking to their car had stopped to watch. Marcus made his decision. He would comply. He would document. And he would pursue every available avenue of accountability. But he would not let this officer see him afraid. "I'm going to comply," Marcus said clearly. "But I want you to know you're making a serious mistake right now." Marcus slowly reached for his wallet in his back pocket, moving deliberately so Hutchkins wouldn't interpret any sudden movements as threatening. He pulled out his driver's license and held it up. Hutchkins snatched it from his hand and walked back to his patrol car. Marcus stood beside his Honda, hands visible, breathing steadily. He counted in his head a technique learned in Marine basic training for staying calm under pressure. 1, 2, 3, 4. He reached 127 when Hutchkins returned. "This address is in Chevy Chase," Hutchkins said. "Pretty fancy neighborhood. What does someone like you do to afford living there?" "Someone like you?" Marcus let those words hang in the air. He could see multiple people recording now, at least 4 phones pointed in their direction. "I don't believe that's relevant to whatever issue you think you're investigating," Marcus said. "Everything is relevant when I'm conducting an investigation," Hutchkins responded. "What were you doing in Nordstrom? What did you purchase?" "I bought a prom dress for my daughter, along with shoes and accessories, which you can see in the bags in my back seat," Marcus said. "Open the bags. I need to verify your story," Hutchkins ordered. "Officer, I've provided my identification," Marcus said. "I've answered your questions. I've committed no crime. You have no probable cause to search my vehicle or my belongings. I'm respectfully declining to consent to any search." Hutchkins stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "You think you're smart? You think you know the law? I'm giving you a direct order. Open the bags." Marcus didn't move. "I know my rights, and I'm exercising them." "You're obstructing my investigation," Hutchkins said. "What investigation?" Marcus asked. "You still haven't told me what crime I'm suspected of committing." A small crowd had gathered now, approximately 15 people, maintaining a respectful distance, but clearly watching. 2 more Montgomery County officers arrived in a second patrol car, number 3592. Officers Jennifer Park and Michael Rodriguez. Hutchkins waved them over. This individual is being uncooperative and refusing lawful orders. I need you as witnesses." Park and Rodriguez exchanged a glance. Park approached Marcus. "Sir, can you tell me what's happening here?" she asked. Marcus explained. "I was loading shopping bags into my car. This officer stopped me without probable cause, demanded my identification, and is now attempting to search my vehicle without my consent and without a warrant." Rodriguez looked at the Nordstrom bags visible through the Honda's window, looked at Marcus's driver's license still in Hutchkins's hand, and looked at the growing crowd of witnesses with their phones recording. "Derek," Rodriguez said quietly to Hutchkins, "what's the probable cause here?" "He matched a description," Hutchkins said. "What description?" Park asked. "I didn't hear any calls about Nordstrom." "It was earlier, before you came on shift," Hutchkins said, his voice tighter now. "That was mistake number 1, a lie on camera in front of witnesses." Marcus saw Rodriguez glance at his own body camera, then at Hutchkins. Rodriguez knew, Park knew. They were watching their colleague dig himself deeper, and they were documenting it. "Sir," Park said to Marcus, "you're free to go. We apologize for the inconvenience." "He's not free to go," Hutchkins snapped. "I'm not finished with my investigation." "Derek, there's no investigation," Rodriguez said, his voice low but firm. "Let him go." Hutchkins's face flushed red. He turned to Marcus. "You think this is over? You think you can just walk away?" "Yes, I do," Marcus said quietly. "I'm filing a report," Hutchkins said. "Suspicious activity, refusal to comply, possible stolen merchandise." That was mistake number 2, retaliation documented with multiple witnesses. "You're going to file a false report?" Marcus asked, his voice carrying clearly to every recording phone. "After stopping me without cause, searching me without consent, and lying about a description that doesn't exist. Get out of here before I find a reason to arrest you," Hutchkins snarled. That was mistake number 3, a threat on camera, witnessed by his own colleagues. Marcus looked at Park and Rodriguez. "I want your names and badge numbers, all 3 of you." Park nodded. "Officer Jennifer Park, badge 7734. Officer Michael Rodriguez, badge 7891. Hutchkins didn't respond. "Officer, your badge number," Marcus said. "I'm entitled to that information." When Hutchkins stayed silent, Rodriguez said, "Derek Hutchkins, badge 6423. Marcus took out his phone and typed the numbers into his notes app. Then he looked directly at Hutchkins. "I want you to remember this moment," Marcus said, "because what happens next, that's on you." Marcus got in his car and drove away. He didn't speed, didn't make any sudden movements, signaled every turn, stopped completely at every stop sign, and maintained exactly the speed limit. He knew Hutchkins was following him. The patrol car stayed 3 car lengths behind Marcus's Honda all the way to the mall exit. Then it turned off, but Marcus spotted another police vehicle, a different one, number 3715, pick up the tail for the next 2 miles. They were searching for something, anything, a broken tail light, a rolling stop, expired registration, 5 miles over the limit, any excuse to pull him over again, to escalate, to retroactively justify Hutchkins's actions. Marcus gave them nothing. When he finally arrived home at 7:42 p.m., 12 minutes later than planned, Jasmine was waiting in the living room, wondering where he'd been. Marcus showed her the dress. Jasmine cried. She said it was perfect, said her mom would have loved it, and asked Marcus how he'd known it was the exact one she'd been looking at with her mother. Marcus didn't tell her what had happened, not yet. He wanted her to have that moment of joy, that connection with her mother's memory, without the shadow of what he'd just experienced. But after Jasmine went to bed, Marcus sat at his kitchen table and did what he'd been trained to do for 22 years of service. He documented everything. Times, locations, badge numbers, exact quotes, as close as he could remember them, the names of the other officers, the patrol car numbers, the fact that he'd been followed for 2 miles after leaving the mall. He spent 2 hours creating a detailed timeline, cross-referencing it with his credit card receipt from Nordstrom, showing the exact purchase time of 6:28 p.m. The parking garage entry stamp on his ticket showing arrival at 5:47 p.m., and even the text message he'd sent to the personal shopper, Alicia, at 5:52 p.m., confirming he was in the store. Every detail mattered. Every timestamp created an unshakable record of the truth. Then he made a phone call to his supervisor at the Secret Service, Special Agent in Charge Patricia Drummond. "Patricia," he said, "I need to report an incident, and I need to make you aware before it becomes public." He told her everything. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Drummond said, "Marcus, I'm sorry this happened to you, and I want you to know we're going to support you completely. Whatever you decide to do, we have your back." She paused, then added, "I'm scheduling a meeting with the director tomorrow morning. This needs to be on record at the highest level. And Marcus, you should know that what happened to you tonight, it matters not just because of who you are, but because of what it represents for every citizen who doesn't have your resources or platform. If you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race, drop a like on this video. Let's show that the majority of people stand for justice." Meanwhile, at Montgomery County Police Headquarters, Officer Derek Hutchkins was at his desk, doing exactly what he'd threatened, filing a report. Report number MC 2023-04-1723, filed at 8:17 p.m. On April 17, 2023, stated that Officer Hutchkins had observed a suspicious male subject loitering in the Nordstrom parking lot at Westfield Montgomery Mall. The subject had been evasive and uncooperative when questioned, had refused lawful orders to present identification and consent to a search, and had demonstrated behavior consistent with possible theft or criminal activity. The report made no mention of the multiple witnesses, no mention of the other officers who'd arrived and told Hutchkins to let Marcus go, no mention of the fact that Marcus had provided identification or that Hutchkins had no probable cause for the stop. It was a work of fiction designed to cover Hutchkins's actions and preemptively justify them if Marcus filed a complaint. That was mistake number 4, creating an official false record. What Hutchkins didn't know was that Officer Jennifer Park, badge 7734, had filed her own report at 8:34 p.m. And her report was very different. Responded to backup call from Officer Hutchkins at Westfield Montgomery. Upon arrival, observed Hutchkins detaining a black male subject without apparent probable cause. Subject was cooperative and calm. Hutchkins claimed subject matched a description, but I was not aware of any such call during my shift. Subject provided identification and clearly explained he was loading purchased merchandise into his vehicle. I saw no evidence of any criminal activity. Advised Hutchkins to conclude the stop. Subject was released. Recommend supervisory review of this incident. A. Officer Michael Rodriguez, badge 7891, filed a similar report at 8:41 p.m. And then there were the videos. By 9:30 p.m. on April 17th, 3 different videos of the incident had been uploaded to social media. By midnight, they'd been viewed over 500,000 times. By 6 a.m. on April 18th, over 2 million people had seen Officer Derek Hutchkins harass a black man for buying his daughter a prom dress. Marcus Wellington didn't post the videos he didn't need to. The witnesses who'd recorded the incident had done that on their own. But on April 18th at 2 p.m., Marcus did something else. He held a press conference. His Secret Service supervisor, Patricia Drummond, stood beside him. So did his attorney, Michelle Grant, from the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. And so did Jasmine, his 17-year-old daughter, wearing the emerald green dress her father had bought her. Marcus stood at the podium in his full Secret Service dress uniform and told the world exactly what had happened. He was calm, he was precise, and he was devastating. "My name is Special Agent Marcus Wellington," he said. "I've served in the United States Secret Service for 14 years, protecting 3 presidents and their families. Before that, I served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps, including combat deployments to Afghanistan." He paused, letting that sink in. "On April 17th, 2023, I was racially profiled and unlawfully detained by Officer Derek Hutchkins of the Montgomery County Police Department. I was stopped without probable cause, questioned without justification, threatened with arrest, and subjected to what can only be described as harassment, all while shopping for my daughter's prom dress." The press conference was carried live on 4 local news stations and streamed by dozens of national outlets. Within an hour, It had been viewed 5 million times. Officer Derek Hutchkins learned about it at 2:47 p.m. when his shift supervisor, Lieutenant Aaron Barnes, called him into his office and told him he was suspended immediately, pending a full investigation. "But I filed a report," Hutchkins protested. He was suspicious. He was uncooperative. Lieutenant Barnes turned his computer monitor around. On the screen was Marcus Wellington in his Secret Service uniform, standing beside his daughter. "That's who you harassed," Barnes said quietly. "A Secret Service agent, a Marine Corps veteran, a father buying his daughter a dress because her mother died of cancer 8 months ago." The color drained from Hutchkins's face. "There are videos, Derek," Barnes continued. "Multiple videos, and they don't match your report. Not even close." Hutchkins started to say, "I can explain." But Barnes cut him off. "You lied in an official report," Barnes said. "You racially profiled a citizen. You violated his constitutional rights. You threatened him when other officers told you to stand down, and you did all of it on camera." Barnes slid a piece of paper across the desk. "You're suspended without pay, effective immediately. Turn in your badge and your weapon. The county prosecutor will be reviewing this case for potential criminal charges." Hutchkins tried to speak, but nothing came out. "Get out of my office," Barnes said, "and get a lawyer." The Montgomery County Police Department launched a formal investigation on April 19, 2023, but they weren't the only ones. The FBI's Civil Rights Division opened an investigation on April 20th, examining whether Hutchkins had violated Marcus's federal civil rights under Title 42, Section 1983 of the U.S. Code. The Maryland Attorney General's Office opened its own investigation on April 21st. And on April 22nd, the day of Jasmine's prom, the Washington Post published an investigation that changed everything. Reporter Sandra Chen had been digging into Officer Derek Hutchkins's history, and what she found was a pattern. Over his 15-year career, Hutchkins had been the subject of 23 citizen complaints. 19 of those complaints, 82.6%, involved black citizens. 15 of those complaints, 65.2%, alleged racial profiling, excessive force, or unlawful detention. And not a single one had resulted in disciplinary action. Not one. The complaints had been investigated by the department's Internal Affairs Division and found to be unfounded or unsubstantiated. Hutchkins had been given additional training twice and counseled on community relations 4 times, but he'd never been suspended, never been demoted, never been fired, until now. If you think police departments need to take complaints seriously and hold officers accountable, comment "accountability" below. Let's make it clear what the public demands. Chen's investigation revealed the names and stories of some of Hutchkins's previous victims. Marcus Green was stopped in 2018 while walking in his own neighborhood, accused of looking suspicious, and detained for 45 minutes while Hutchkins ran warrant checks. No arrest, no charges, but a complaint filed that was marked unfounded. Tamara Johnson was stopped in 2019 while driving with her 2 children in the car. Told she fit the description of a robbery suspect, even though she was 5'4" and 130 pounds, while the suspect was described as 6'2" and 200 pounds. She was held for 35 minutes. Complaint filed, marked unsubstantiated. David Patterson was stopped in 2020 outside his workplace, accused of trespassing, even though he worked there and had for 6 years. Hutchkins demanded to see proof of employment. Patterson showed his employee badge, his security card, and his business card, but Hutchkins still ran a background check. Complaint filed, marked unfounded. 17-year-old Jamal Foster was stopped in 2021 while riding his bike to school, told he matched a description. Hutchkins searched his backpack without consent, found nothing, and let him go 40 minutes later, making Jamal miss his AP Calculus exam. Complaint filed, marked unsubstantiated, and on and on and on. 23 complaints, 19 black victims, 0 consequences, until Marcus Wellington. The difference wasn't that Marcus had more rights than the others. It wasn't that his experience was worse than theirs. The difference was that Marcus had a platform, resources, legal knowledge, and a determination to make sure this stopped. But he made something else very clear. This wasn't just about him. On April 25th, Marcus's attorney filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Officer Derek Hutchkins, the Montgomery County Police Department, Police Chief Thomas Morrison, and Montgomery County itself. The lawsuit named all 23 previous complainants as additional plaintiffs and sought $5,700,000 in damages, including $250,000 for Marcus's emotional distress and civil rights violations, and $5,450,000 for the pattern and practice of discrimination that had been allowed to continue unchecked for 15 years. The lawsuit alleged that the Montgomery County Police Department had engaged in deliberate indifference to Hutchins's pattern of racial profiling, had failed to properly investigate citizen complaints, and had created a culture where officers like Hutchins knew they could violate constitutional rights without consequence. The criminal case against Derek Hutchins moved with unusual speed. On May 3, 2023, the Montgomery County State's Attorney charged Hutchins with official misconduct, a misdemeanor carrying up to 1 year in prison, false report by a public officer, a misdemeanor carrying up to 2 years, and violating civil rights under Maryland law, a misdemeanor carrying up to 3 years. On the federal level, on May 17, 2023, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland charged Hutchins with deprivation of rights under color of law under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, a felony carrying up to 10 years in prison. Hutchins pleaded not guilty to all charges. His trial began on September 11, 2023, in Montgomery County Circuit Court. The prosecution presented the videos from April 17. They presented the testimony of Officers Park and Rodriguez, who clearly stated that Hutchins had no probable cause and had lied about the description. They presented Hutchins' false report side by side with the video evidence that contradicted it. They presented testimony from 5 of the previous 23 complainants, establishing a pattern, and they presented Marcus Wellington. Marcus testified for 4 hours over 2 days. He walked the jury through every moment of the encounter calmly and precisely. He never raised his voice. He never showed anger. He simply told the truth. When the defense attorney suggested that Marcus had been confrontational or uncooperative, Marcus responded, "I asserted my constitutional rights. That's not confrontational. That's citizenship." When the defense attorney suggested that Hutchins had reasonable suspicion to make the stop, Marcus responded, "Reasonable suspicion requires specific, articulable facts suggesting criminal activity. The only fact was that I'm black. That's not reasonable suspicion. That's racism." The defense tried multiple strategies to discredit Marcus's account. Hutchins's attorney, Gerald Payton, attempted to argue that Marcus's extensive training in law enforcement made him unusually combative during the encounter, suggesting that an ordinary citizen would have simply complied without question. Marcus calmly explained that his training taught him to respect constitutional rights, not to surrender them, and that every American, regardless of their profession or background, has the right to question unlawful detention. Payton then tried to introduce the fact that Marcus was carrying his service weapon during the encounter, a detail captured on one of the videos, implying that this justified Hutchins's aggressive approach. The prosecution immediately objected, pointing out that Marcus had a federal license to carry, the weapon was concealed and never mentioned during the encounter, and Maryland is an open carry state where legal firearm possession cannot constitute reasonable suspicion. Judge Thompson sustained the objection and instructed the jury to disregard the implication. If you believe that asserting your rights is not a crime, hit that subscribe button. We cover stories of justice and accountability every week. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 47 minutes. On September 28, 2023, they returned with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. On November 15, 2023, Judge Rebecca Thompson sentenced Derek Hutchins to 18 months in prison, served consecutively across all charges. 3 years of supervised probation after release. 500 hours of community service. Mandatory completion of racial bias training. Permanent prohibition from working in law enforcement anywhere in the United States. and payment of $47,500 in restitution to Marcus Wellington for legal fees and emotional distress. In her sentencing statement, Judge Thompson said, "Officer Hutchkins, you were given a badge and the public's trust. You weaponized that trust against the very people you swore to protect. You targeted citizens based on the color of their skin. You lied to cover your actions. And when given multiple opportunities to do the right thing, you chose escalation over de-escalation, ego over duty, and racism over justice." This sentence reflects not just what you did on April 17, 2023, but the pattern of behavior you engaged in for 15 years while your department looked the other way. The federal civil rights case went to trial on January 8, 2024. It lasted 3 weeks. On February 2, 2024, the jury awarded the plaintiffs $5,700,000 in damages, including $850,000 to Marcus Wellington, $4,100,000 distributed among the 23 other plaintiffs, and $750,000 in punitive damages against the Montgomery County Police Department. But perhaps more importantly, the judge ordered systemic reforms, including creation of an independent civilian review board with subpoena power to investigate all citizen complaints, public release of all disciplinary records for officers with 3 or more complaints, mandatory body cameras for all patrol officers with footage automatically uploaded and preserved for 5 years, termination of any officer found to have filed a false report, quarterly racial bias audits of all traffic stops and pedestrian encounters, and annual reporting of stop data broken down by race, location, and outcome. Derek Hutchkins began serving his sentence on December 4, 2023, at the Maryland Correctional Institution in Jessup. He was released on March 15, 2025, after serving 15 months with time off for good behavior. But prison was just the beginning of his consequences. His wife, Emily Hutchkins, filed for divorce in January 2024, citing irreconcilable differences and public humiliation. The divorce was finalized in April 2024. She was awarded the house, full custody of their 2 children, and 65% of his pension. Hutchkins's father, a retired police lieutenant, publicly disowned him in a letter published in the Washington Post on October 3, 2023, writing, "My son's actions do not represent the values I tried to instill in him or the principles of law enforcement I served for 35 years. What he did to Agent Wellington and those 23 other citizens is unforgivable." Hutchkins's attempt to appeal his conviction was denied by the Maryland Court of Special Appeals on June 12, 2024. His attempt to find employment after his release has been documented by local media. He applied for 47 jobs between March and August 2025, received 2 interviews, and both employers withdrew their offers after background checks revealed his criminal record. As of the most recent reporting in October 2025, Hutchkins was working part-time at a warehouse in Frederick, Maryland, earning $16.50 per hour, a significant decline from his police salary of $87,400 per year. His social media accounts, once filled with photos in uniform and posts about law enforcement, were deleted in May 2024. Friends and former colleagues who'd once supported him publicly distanced themselves as the full scope of his pattern became clear. Several former academy classmates gave interviews to local news stations condemning his actions and stating they were ashamed to have served alongside him. But the consequences extended beyond Hutchkins himself. Police Chief Thomas Morrison announced his resignation on March 15, 2024, acknowledging that the department had failed in its duty to hold officers accountable and protect the constitutional rights of all citizens. Lieutenant Aaron Barnes, who had supervised Hutchkins for 6 years without taking disciplinary action despite multiple complaints, was demoted to patrol officer and transferred to a different precinct. The Civilian Review Board, established as part of the court order, reviewed all 23 previous complaints against Hutchkins and found that 19 had been improperly investigated or dismissed without adequate evidence. This led to the suspension without pay for 60 days of the officers who conducted those investigations, including 2 internal affairs sergeants who were required to undergo retraining. And importantly, 4 other Montgomery County officers were investigated based on similar patterns of complaints, leading to 3 terminations and 1 resignation before the investigation was complete. The reforms mandated by the court had measurable effects within the first year of implementation. According to data released by the Montgomery County Police Department in March 2025, citizen complaints of racial profiling decreased by 34% between April 2024 and March 2025 compared to the previous year. The Independent Civilian Review Board, chaired by civil rights attorney Raymond Harris, investigated 127 complaints in its first year and sustained 41 of them, a dramatic increase from the previous internal affairs sustained rate of just 8%. 17 officers received formal discipline ranging from written reprimands to suspensions. 5 officers were terminated for sustained violations. Body camera compliance reached 99.7%, with footage preservation protocols preventing the technical failures that had previously been cited in cases where footage conveniently disappeared. The quarterly racial bias audits revealed that traffic stops of black drivers decreased by 28% while actual arrest rates remained statistically unchanged, suggesting that many previous stops had been pretextual rather than based on legitimate law enforcement purposes. Marcus Wellington could have let it go. He could have gone home on April 17, 2023, put the dress in Jasmine's room, and tried to forget about what happened in that parking lot. He had his daughter's prom to think about. He had his job protecting the president. He had grief to process and a future to build. No one would have blamed him for staying silent. But Marcus understood something that too many people forget. Silence protects the system. Silence allows patterns to continue. And silence tells the next victim that they're alone. So Marcus spoke. And because he spoke, 23 other victims were heard. Because he spoke, Officer Derek Hutchkins will never wear a badge again. Because he spoke, Montgomery County implemented reforms that will protect thousands of citizens from similar experiences. Because he spoke, police departments across Maryland and across the country were forced to examine their own complaint processes, their own patterns, and their own blind spots. On April 22, 2023, Jasmine Wellington went to her senior prom in the emerald green dress her father bought her, the one her mother had picked out. Marcus was there to take pictures. He posted one photo on social media, just one, of him and Jasmine, with the caption, "My daughter got to have her special night. Every child deserves that. Every parent deserves to provide that without fear." The photo was shared 2.3 million times. Marcus continues to serve in the United States Secret Service. In December 2024, he was promoted to Deputy Special Agent in charge of the Presidential Protection Division. He also speaks regularly at law enforcement conferences about constitutional policing, de-escalation, and unconscious bias. He's been invited to speak at the FBI Academy, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and police departments in 17 states. He tells every audience the same thing. Respect isn't about rank or credentials. It's about humanity. Officer Hutchkins didn't stop respecting me because I didn't show him my Secret Service badge. He never respected me in the first place. He saw my skin before he saw my humanity, and that's what has to change. The 23 other plaintiffs in the lawsuit have used their settlement money in various ways. Marcus Green started a legal defense fund for victims of police misconduct that has assisted 34 families as of October 2025, providing over $280,000 in legal support to people who otherwise couldn't afford representation. Tamara Johnson created a scholarship for students pursuing careers in civil rights law that has awarded $150,000 to 12 students at historically black colleges and universities. David Patterson donated his entire settlement to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And Marcus Wellington put $750,000 of his settlement into a trust fund for Jasmine's college education and future, donated $100,000 to the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and kept the rest to establish the Simone Wellington Foundation, named after his late wife, which provides support and legal resources for families affected by racial profiling. On the Foundation's website, there's a photo of Simone smiling with a quote she used to tell Marcus and Jasmine, Do the right thing even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Marcus did the right thing. It was hard, but it was worth it. Thank you for watching this story. If it resonated with you, if it made you think, or if it reminded you why accountability matters, please hit that subscribe button. We tell stories like this one because they need to be told, because justice delayed is justice denied, but justice achieved is a victory for all of us. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And here's my question for you. What would you have done in Marcus Wellington's position? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have spoken up? Drop your answer in the comments because I read every single one. Until next time, stay informed, stay strong, and never stop demanding accountability.